Okay, everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I'm about to just take you through a project I did, which allows people to subscribe to the waiting list for a service or a product. Yes, so just you subscribing to the waiting list or the wait list, yes, whichever one it is. So this is my endpoint localhost 3000 slash API slash v1 slash waitlist. So I have my body, which is my name, then my email, yes, raktiku@outlook.com. Yeah, so you can actually reach me on this email now. So let's make the request and see what happens. Okay, it's giving me a 200 okay response and it's telling me I'm already subscribed to the wait list. Oh, okay, meaning this email is already there. So let's try a different email. Let's try a different email. Okay, let's see our submit at outlook.com. Okay, so that one gave me a successful message. It's telling me I've successfully joined the waitlist. I'm supposed to receive. Let's check our email. I'm supposed to have received a mail confirming that I had subscribed to the waitlist for their product. I don't know why it's still not coming yet. Okay, it's telling me I have a TCP connection error. Wow. To the meaning it's having issues connecting to the STMP server, which is supposed to do the sending of the email. Okay, let me change it. Let me use something else over here. Come to the transporter. Okay, let me use what I usually use for my testing, which is this one. MailTrap.io. I don't know whether you've heard of it. I'll leave the link in the description so that you can check it out. Then let me go and just restart the server. Yeah, I'm restarting the server because I'm using npm start, just node. I'm using the node start script, the node run, then your file name. Yes, I'm not using node mondo is there, but I'm not using it, else it would have automatically restarted the server. So I think the server is up and running. So yes, let's try the joining of the waitlist again. Because I've already joined with this, I'll have to use a different email. Use at gmail.com. Yes. Then I send. Okay, I've successfully joined the waitlist. And because I use it for, it actually doesn't go straight to my mail. It goes to their email. Then this one. Then I can go and view it from there. So let's do that. MailTrap. Okay, need to do that with Google. Let me sign in real quick. Let me just use my pin instead. Okay, that's this one. I hope you can all see it. You are on the wait list. Our submit at gmail.com a minute ago. So we'll open it and let's see what the mail says. Thank you for dear Sabit. Yes, of course, that's my name. Thank you for joining the waitlist for our product and service. We are thrilled to have you on board. We can't wait to share our amazing service with you. We are working hard to meet. Yes, so that's the acknowledgement email which was supposed to be sent to this email address, but it seems I have problem connecting to the I have a TCP connection problem, so I'll rectify that one soon. But yes, that's basically how the project works, or how the system works. So let's now go through the code. Okay, so yes, so most of the code, all the code reside in the source directory, which I have the app. That's everything dealing with the initialization of the app and stuffs. Then the modules or the services, that's where I have the business logic. And then the shared, that's where I sort of put all the stuffs I'll be sharing across the various components or services throughout the whole app. And yeah, it also contains some of my infrastructure code, which we'll look at that one too. So let me start with the app. Let me start with the entry file, which is app.js. So yes, this is the app.js file. I require my .env package, which helps us to use the .env file. Though yes, with current node, you don't actually need to require it. Node has, with the current, that's version 21. Version 21, yes, you could, they've embedded it into the node, so you could require the .env file without using an external package like .env. Yes, I have my Express, because I'm using Express, Node Express, though there are other frameworks, but Express is the most popular. Here meant to deal with my headers for compression of the headers. Yes, that's my start server function, which we'll look into. The routes, requiring the routes from the routes directory, the routes folder. Yes, then I'm actually requiring all this from the shared directory I showed you, which I said I have stuffs or functions which I share throughout the whole app. This is the queue client, which deals with the message queue, that's Kafka, error handler, then my logger, which uses Pino. Yes, we will look into each of them. Subscribe to the message queue. Yes, it's a function which I wrote which subscribes to the message queue, like it just says. Then the database. Yes. Okay, so this is my start function. That's the start server function I wrote, which takes in Express. Yeah, which will return an Express app, of course. It will return an Express app, which takes in Express routes, error handler, logger, then helmet. I have a console.log time to just see how quick the app starts. I'm using await promise.all to connect to the message queue as a producer, connect to the message queue as a consumer, as well as connect to my database. And then I have the await.subscribe to the message queue. That one is out of this because you cannot subscribe while you are still trying to connect as a producer. Yes, because it runs, if I add it to the promise.all, it will run everything concurrently, which this will tend to subscribe, this will tend to fire before this. So, and you cannot subscribe to something you are not producing. Yes, that's Apache Kafka. You can't subscribe if you are not a producer, if you are not consuming from that message queue, you can't subscribe. So yes, that's why, so that it will first connect, as a producer, connect as a consumer, connect to the database. After it's done with this, then it will now subscribe to the message queue, and then I'll console.time end to see, yes, to now see how long it took. Then just the basics, app.listing, logger.info. Yes, just in the process ID to tell the process it is. I also added some kill signals just to trigger a graceful shutdown, which would log that, oh, this signal has triggered a graceful shutdown, shutting down the server gracefully. Then promise.all, it will disconnect from the database, disconnect from the queue client, then disconnect as a producer, then process.exit. Then yes, so basically that's just what the entry file is about. So I'll leave a link in there to the GitHub repository so that you can go and have a look at it and see how you can modify it to suit whatever you want to do. So let's have a look at the start server. So the start server function, as I just take in the Express package, the routes I created for the routes, the error handler middleware I did to handle errors, the logger just for console login, which uses Pino, like I said, and my helmet for for my headers. Yes, so I initialize the app with the express, use the helmet, just the basic to be able to take in body. And then, so yes, the rouse is a function which takes in the express app as an an argument, and I use my error handler, to pass down errors, which to pass down errors from the rouse to this error handler, which then displays it to the user. And then I just return the app. Yes. So basically that's what the server and the app.js does. So now let's look at the rouse. If you look at the rouse file, what it does. So this is the rouse file. Yeah, I just have my join with list. That's the API, or that's the controller. That's the join with list. Then the send suggestion messages. Like I said, if you want to send suggestion messages, I'm requiring all those from the controllers. We should take a look. So that's the route which takes the app as a parameter, and app.get, that's just to check the health of the server. App.post to post to the join with list endpoint, then app.post, so that's where you want to send a message to the team. Yes, so that's the endpoint. So basically that's just what the rouse is about. Let's look at the controllers over here. So okay, so you said the controllers, that's the index. You said the controllers. I'm requiring the endpoints. Those are the APIs which I'm exposing from the services or the modules. Yes, I'm requiring those endpoints or those APIs from the models folder. So, and then I'll build a controller. I have made a function which, so let's take the join with list, for example. Build join with list controller. Let's take a look at that one. Let me split the screen, then we take a look at that one. Okay, so that's this one. So that's the build join with list controller for joining the with list. So it takes the API as an argument, the join with list API as an argument, and it returns a function which takes the HTTP request, extract the body from the request. I will just spread the body. I could have just done it constant http.m. I just extracted the member data from the body. Then I now await the API I'm requiring from the models. So that one, I'm now awaiting it, and I'll now pass in the member data. So then it will just take care of the business logic from there. Then go through the processes, then give us a status code and the body as to whether I've successfully joined or there's an error, or yes, it will give it to us. Then I just return the headers and the status code and the body. So basically that's what it does, and it's the same thing for the send message too. It's just the same thing. So, and then I'll now, coming back to this, I'll now come and just wrap it as a controller, then just object.freeze so that I don't have any modifications. Yes, and now export it as a controller, which I now require inside the routes. Then I just require them from the routes inside and just use them. Join with list, join this. So just looking at what the make express callback does, that's this function. So I'm basically just exporting a function which returns an express like function, express, which takes the requests, res, and the next parameters. So I just construct my HTTP request, which is the request, of course. So I just construct my HTTP request object, So I just body, which is the request.body method. I could have done the cookies. So you just pass in what you think you will need from the request. So I just built the HTTP request from it. Let me split the screen and open because it takes a controller from the controllers I looked at. So let's take a look at the join with list controller like this. So yeah, the request will take a controller. This is the join with list controller. So it's returning an HTTP response. So it will take the controller, and this controller takes an HTTP request, which is this request object over here. This request object over here, because the controller takes an HTTP request. Then this HTTP request dot body will give us access to the request body, which is the request dot body. So that's what I'm extracting over here. Then it's returning an HTTP response, which comprises of the headers, then the status code, and the body. That's what we are doing here. Because it's the controller, because it's a sync function, we can .then it. Then we just .then, which is the HTTP response. If we have the headers, that's this headers, we set the headers to that. We set the response type to JSON, and the status, which is the status code. Then the HTTP, we set the HTTP body, which is this body. Then we catch any error, then pass it to the next function. Sorry, the next middleware rather, which is the error handler. So yes, basically that's what it. So once we wrap it around this, we don't need to always. Let me open the routes and show you something. Where's my routes? So I don't know, sometimes it's just the same thing as doing something like this. Maybe I have app.post, maybe this is my endpoint /API /v1 /waitlist. So to just waitlist, so that I don't do request response, probably next, then right, that's just the same thing of what the make request API does. It just basically does the same thing for this. So I just wrap it so that for every route and its corresponding function, I'll just wrap it so that I won't need to constantly repeat request.body requests. Yes, so that's just what it basically does. Let me just Ctrl+Z all this out. So yes, that's for the routes. So I think let's go through the services or the models and see how the business logic actually works. Let me close up then open. Okay, so let's take a look at the waitlist, how it works. So for the waitlist, I have my API folder. That's where I just export the join waitlist API, or just the endpoint which takes care of which exposes the business logic. So just functions. So I just basically just export this. So that's what I imported inside the controller. If you could remember, that's what I imported. So yes, I just export the API. Then, so for the business logic, I'm calling it add member. That's the add member from the core. So let's take a look inside the core. So inside the core, we have our data access, our entities folder, our errors, the use case. So let's look at the data access. So data access is just basically just making this a layer or a function which will help us write to the database, or write or read from the database. So I have this find by email, where I pass in the email and it just retrieves the email if it exists. If it doesn't, yes, so I just retrieve the email. That's if the email exists. Then insert, which inserts new member data into the database. Then I just return both functions as object.freeze. That's just what it does. That's what the data access does. My entities is just like I just have, so this basically my core business logic. So this is where my business logic resides. So this is where I validate everything that has to deal with the member joining the waitlist. So I just build, I have a factory, build with list member. Then I just return the member. So the member should have a name, an email, and when he or she joined the wait list. So I just validate the member name, then validate the member email, and then I just return, object, get the name, get the email, get the date to join. So this is the function which validates the member name. So it just takes in the name, string. If there's no name, it throws provide name error. So if your name is less than 3 characters, it just throws name cannot be less than 3 characters, which validates the email to which is a regular expression. Then you just test your email to this regular expression. If it matches, good. If it doesn't match, it will tell you provide a valid email address. Then if there's no email, it will throw provide email error. Let's take a look at what the error is. So this is the provide email error. It's just a class which I'm extending initialize error, which we'll look at. Constructor, which is it takes in the message. So if there's a message, it will return that. If there's no message, just that's the default the status code. So basically that's the same thing for the name. That's what it also does. So now, from the entity, that's just what the business logic is. Then I just export it inside the index. I just export create member, I call it then, which I call the build with list. So the create member, which I'm calling the build with list, it will return, where is it? It's going to return this function. It's going to return only this function, which is the member function. It's going to just return just this function. Sorry about that. It's going to return just that function. Yes, that's what I named as create member. So I'm just exporting that function. So which I'm going to use inside the use case. Yes, which is me letting or me now. So the use case now is join the wait list. So the entity was about like how the member should be like, or yes, how is the member going to be like? So the member should have a name. I should validate the name. Should have an email. I should validate the email. Now I'm now joining the wait list, which is now the action I'm performing, which is the use case. So it's also a builder which takes in the waitlist database. That's the data access I showed you earlier, which is going to allow us to write to the database a message dispatcher, which will dispatch a message to the message queue that this person or a new member has subscribed to our waitlist. And then that's where the email service will now consume the message and now dispatch the email back to the user that he or she we have successfully, you just dispatch the acknowledgement message back to the user that he or she has successfully joined the waitlist. So yes, basically I just return. So it's also, there are two functions. So have a function which just joins the waitlist. So it takes your email and your name, then constant member, it will just call the create member. That's from the entity. If you could remember, we are importing this from the entity. So it will just call it, then pass in your name and your email, because it will receive this name and email from the request.body. Yes, it will receive it from the request.body and now pass it. Then the member will now validate the member. Then the entity will now validate the member to make sure that he or she is complying with our business logic or how we expect our member to be. Then if that's validated, it will proceed to this. Then first it will check the database if that member already exists. If he or she is, then it will return the member email. That's from here, then tell us that this member already existed on the waitlist like we saw earlier in the demo video. Then if that member is not, we will now add the member to the wait list. Add the member here, then dispatch the message to the queue. So I'm wrapping it all in a promise.all to just run them concurrently, just to increase the overall speed of the response. Then I'll just return the requests. I'll just return successfully joined the waitlist and the status code. So yes, basically that's it. This one is also for something else which I will not talk about in the video. But okay, let me just touch on it. Basically, what the idea behind this was, as part of the suggestion messages, maybe if you would, maybe we have an option where it will be like, if there's a checkbox, maybe you decide to send them a suggestion message and they have a checkbox which says maybe you want to receive updates from them. Once you check on that checkbox, it will check the database. If you are there as a waitlist member, they can add you. If you are there as a waitlist member, you are not added. If you are not there, then they add you to the waitlist, so that once they are dispatching maybe further updates to their waitlist members, you could also have a piece of that update. Yes, so basically that's what this function does. You could just look through them inside the repo once I leave the link in the description. And let me see, basically that's what the joining of the waitlist is about. And then let's have a look at the email, how I managed to dispatch the email. So yes, this is the email. Basically I just have the call because I'm not, exposing it as like an endpoint or something, because that one is just dealing with our app, is an infrastructure to our app. So that one we have the entity, so we just have a look at the email body, how that one is about. So for the email body too, is basically almost the same thing as the waitlist. You have the build email body, because we are dealing with, because I've done it in such a way that if you join the waitlist, it will dispatch a mail to you that you've successfully joined the waitlist. Once you send a suggestion message to the team or to the team of the service or product, it will in turn dispatch a message back to you that they have successfully received your feedback email. And yes, so those are the two templates I'm passing inside, or I'm injecting into this builder function. Yes, so this function deals with joining of the waitlist. That's for joining of the waitlist. So it will process there. So it will get your name and your email from the request.body. Then, okay, not the request.body, not the request.body. If you take a look at how, where's the waitlist? Where's the waitlist? Okay, so this is the use case. Let me open the use case. So yes, this place we are dispatching a message to the message queue. So from the message we have the name and the email. So once you dispatch this message, once this message has been successfully dispatched to the message queue, then our email will automatically subscribe then fire when it receives any message concerning a person joining the waitlist. So that's where we have the name, the receiver's name, and the receiver's email from that message. Then we pass the receiver's name into the template, into our email template. Let me just open it so that we can have a look at it. So the template is just using handlebars. So that's the waitlist template. It's just using handlebars, the handlebars package to render HTML. So I just pass in the name there. That's the message we read earlier in the demo video. So that's just the same thing. So it will build out the app message. Then I'll just return this object.freeze, which is get name of receiver, pass in the name of the receiver, the name of the email, pass in the receiver's email, and the message, which will be the message from the template. Then that's the same thing for the suggestion message too. Basically the same thing. Then I just return both functions. So yes, let's return both functions. Let's now take a look at the use case. So we have send response. So it's just a send response. So That one is also a builder which takes in the transporter, the HTML. So in our case, we are using Node Mailer. Yes, we are using Node Mailer to be sending of the emails. So we just takes that one in, send join with list response. So this one will send it in case you join the wait list. It's this function that will get triggered. If it's a suggestion message you sent, this function to get triggered. So email to send, you just call the join with list body, which is from the entity, and pass in the receiver's name and the receiver's email. Then it will run our business logic. Then that's the use case rather. That's the join and run it. Then all this is just the config to our node mailer. So the message config from printerlize to the name of the receiver, then the email, name of the email, then the subject you're on the wait list, then the message like we saw when we opened the, let me just open it again, like we saw here. Yes, so like we saw here, which is the from node mailer. So this is the subject, this is the from, this is the to, and this is the message. So yes, basically that's what it does. So for the send, then if it's then after I've defined the config, I just pass it into the transporter, which I've also built a function forward message, which we'll also look at. Then basically that's the same thing it does for the forward suggestion message too. Then I just return them. So for the transporter, where it is. So okay, so that's the transporter we are looking at. Build transporter, which takes in the transporter, which is the node mailer here. Then we forward the message, is just the message configure, the message information. Then the from message.from, like we saw, message.to subject, then the headers, then just forward the message. I'm returning this results. My intention was to check whether, when you take the result object, we have whether the message was rejected or it has been successfully delivered. All those status are inside the result. So yes, I'm just returning it to just maybe later check for confirmation's sake. And then so this is just where I define the transporter and pass it into the build transporter function, which is the node mailer. So yes, basically that's how the whole project basically works. So maybe let's have a look at the message queue, because I've not really spoken much about it. Let's have a look at the message queue. So this is my message broker, which I'm using Kafka, Apache Kafka. I also leave a link to their website. You could also check them out, Apache Kafka. So yes, I just create a class, a message broker class, then initialize everything inside the constructor, taking the client ID, then the brokers, just initialize a new Kafka instance. Then yes, so basically running this is actually, the Kafka instance is actually running inside a Docker component. It's running inside a Docker component, which you can see here, message broker. So it's running inside a Docker component on my system. So you have to have that one running before you can be able to connect to it. So I'm using I'm using this npm package Kafkajs, which helps us connect to the Kafka broker or the Kafka instance running inside the Docker. So inside my class, I have my consumer, which I connect to the consumer, disconnect from the consumer, connect to the producer, disconnect from the producer, then send a message to the queue, or publish a message to the queue. So we're just taking the topic, then the message, probably other options if there's any. So I have a list of topics here which are just constant. Then I validate the topic you've passed through the list of topics. If it exists, then it proceed. If it does not, it throws an invalid topic error. But this topic, if it throws an invalid topic error, which don't get, it doesn't, because this one is considered as a programmer error, so not operational, as a programmer error instead. So then I just await the producer.send. So basically that's what it is. Then subscribe topic, subscribe to the topic. So this is the function that subscribes to the topic. It takes in the topic callback and a trigger message callback. So let's have a look at something here. Let's look at something here. So I later wrote a function which subscribes to the message queue. So that's where I have this trigger message callback, which takes the topic, the payload, and the callbacks. That's what we saw over here. That's what we are basically seeing here. That's this function, trigger message callback, which is an async function. So that's what we saw there. So what it basically does here is this create message subscriber. I pass in the queue client, which is the Kafka message broker client we created. I pass that one in, then the queue. So it just returns a function which calls this queue client, or which awaits this queue client or subscribe to topic, which is what we just saw. It passes in the topics from here, passes in this callback from here, and then pass in this trigger message callback. So this trigger message callback gets calls here. It's get called here, which is awaits this trigger message callback, which is inside the message broker. So it get calls here, then now pass in the topic, the payload, and then the callbacks. So it pass them back into this message, into this trigger message callback, which is this one. So what it does is the callbacks is an object. Yes, it's an object. I'll show you how it's like. So the callbacks is an object which is an object where I have the topic, and then the topic is mapped out to a function which will trigger an action. So let's see when a user joins the waitlist like this. Let's just have a look at what it does over here. Where is it? Subscribers. Okay, so let's just have it. So this is the callbacks object I was talking about. So this is the topic, waitlist joined, which is a function, dispatch join waitlist email. That's what we saw inside the email module. So once a user or a person joins the waitlist for the service or the product, it will trigger. So that callback over here inside the message callback is listening for this event, this join waitlist event. So once this join waitlist event is triggered inside the subscribe to topic function inside the message broker, it triggers this dispatch message. Then I'll pass in the arguments, which will be the payload from the message, which is the name and the email. I'll pass it inside the dispatch email function callback. Then it just runs what I ask it to do, pass it through the templates, and then sends it to the transporter. Then the transporter dispatches it to the mail of the user. So because we have three topics, waitlist, joined on check, and then suggestion message, so they basically all do the same thing. So this is where I actually call the message subscriber, pass in the topics, which is a list of topics, and then the callbacks. So, and then the callbacks function, which we saw over here, which is over here, where is it? That's this one. We pass in the topics, which is a list, and the callbacks, which is an object. Then I pass it to the subscribe, then it gets passed this trigger callback, this trigger message callback function. So it's basically, that's what it does. Then the message describer too. So a message dispatcher, rather, it just takes in the queue client, it publishes a message to the queue client, sorry. So it takes in the topic, and then the message await queue client dot send message, which is over there, which we saw, which it just produces or writes to the queue client, which takes in the topic and the message. This one was publish messages if in case we want to send bulk messages. Then basically that's just what it just does. So I think that's just an overview of how everything is working. So I'll just leave a link. Like I said, I'll leave a link to the GitHub repo. Maybe once you go through it, you can understand it further. Yes, then you see what you can do to it. So yes. Right, so basically that's what I think I have to say. So please don't forget to, you know, like the video. I'm open to your suggestions inside the comment section. I'm eager to see what you have to say about it. Any things I could have done better, or any suggestions, anything maybe I probably did wrong, which you could draw my attention to, and just tell me how I could improve my content. Yeah, so don't forget to subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and hit the notification icon just to not be left behind whenever I upload a new video. Yeah, so thank you very much. Peace.